Your L&D team wants to use AI to be more efficient and productive. But how do you begin to bring AI into your workflow?
It's a partner. It's not going to take your job, but it may if you don't learn how to use it. So you're going to have to partner with these tools. It's your assistant. It's not your boss.
That's Michelle Echevarria, Director of Learning and Development at JBS International, and an early adopter of using artificial intelligence in her Learning and Development department. Hear her AI journey and learn what you can do to get started. Next on Powered by Learning.
Powered by Learning is brought to you by DaVinci Interactive. DaVinci's approach to learning is grounded in 30 years of innovation and expertise. We use proven strategies and leading technology to develop solutions that empower learners to improve quality and boost performance. Learn more at davinci.com.
Joining me today is Beth Buchanan, Senior Instructional Designer, Project Manager at DaVinci, and our guest, Michelle Echevarria, Director of Learning and Development at JBS International, who is joining us to talk about her AI journey. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Michelle.
Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you so much for having me.
Michelle, start off by telling us a little bit about JBS International and your role there.
Absolutely. So I've been at JBS International for about 10 years now. And currently I oversee the Instructional Media Solutions Group. Essentially, we provide services and solutions around instructional design and development for our external clients. The vast majority of our external clients are in the public sector from a myriad of different government agencies. JBS has been around for quite some time, over 30 years now. We have a deep healthcare, social sciences, education, and workforce development expertise. We work to advance the fields like health, safety, keeping in mind and well-being of people, focused on where they live, learn, work, and play. And, we pride ourselves on our deep level of expertise and in-house SMEs that, definitely works to set us apart from other agencies such as us.
Well, that's great. Well, we met you at the Training Industry Conference and Expo and had such a great conversation about artificial intelligence. I knew in about 30 seconds that we had to get you on as a guest on our podcast because you're blazing the trail. You are a few months ahead of most of us. And I was just so excited to talk with you. I thought it'd be great for Beth and I to have you on the podcast to learn a little bit more about your journey.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, I'm excited to be here and excited to share my knowledge and what we know so far.
Great. Let's get right into it then. I think we both know that AI is absolutely everywhere. Since it jumped on the scene 8 or 9 months ago, it seems everybody is doing it now. So the big question is, how can AI be used to improve learning and development? From your perspective, how can people use AI to their advantage in this field?
Right. I think in some respects, it's still very much an open answer for that, because now we're still very early in AI developmental stages. It's sort of the Wild West of the AI phase right now. But tools like ChatGPT, which I hope all of the listeners at least have heard of, is an example of something that could be used within your L&D processes relatively easy and quickly. It's a free tool. And for example, it can create or help you create things like your SME interview questions for your analysis part of your ADDIE model, presuming that you're using that. It can also help you develop topics for your training. It can also work towards creating an outline, and in some regards, even create sort of earlier drafts of your complete content that you want to include in the module. So it's pretty robust. It can be used in a lot of different ways. For example, I anticipate tools like Articulate and Adobe products soon, they're going to start encompassing all of these AI tools, such as the ChatGPT, and they're going to roll that into their software as part of it'll be sort of a normal part of our process in developing pretty soon. I'm sure that they're working on that right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. So people should not run and hide. They
Absolutely
should embrace
not.
this new technology, right? I heard a few things that you said that I thought were really interesting. using it kind of as that first step into your project, right? Whether it's researching or outlining or,
Right.
just coming up with a topic. You could ask GPT, hey, give me 10 topics,
Right.
in this larger topic to get me started, right? Do you think that's helpful? Like, do you think that's the first step in producing quality learning? What do you get as, someone who develops content? What do you get by using this tool to start out?
In terms of creating quality learning in its current stage, I think not so much right now. Humans still sort of reign supreme in that space. But it can certainly help to create sort of a level one draft of things like an outline, things like scripts and storyboards and things like that. But it would still need to have a human oversight, whether it be from an instructional designer and or a SME. But what it can do is cut down on some of your upfront development time. So that way you can focus on creating more robust content.
I love that. I think everybody loves that if they're in this field, right? Any kind of space to create more, to gain more efficiencies and
Absolutely.
time on your side, right? So, what are some ways that you are using it personally in your day to day?
Personally, I started to sort of play around with AI around the holidays, around Thanksgiving, Christmas time. So I actually used it to help me write a couple of holiday notes to people on a personal level. It can also help with crafting emails. And then I've also heard of people who have used it for even medical items where you may need to write an appeal letter to your health insurance agency. So it can help with some of those sort of everyday things that we need, even things like recipes, workout regimens. So there's a lot of really creative ways you can use it in your personal life as well.
Yeah, that's exciting. I haven't even thought about that yet. I was, if that saves me a little time writing Christmas cards, that might be that might be a nice benefit.
Of course, you want to go back and circle back and personalize it a little bit more.
Now, Beth, what you and Michelle could do is use ChatGPT to ask it how it could help you, and it would tell you. So
Now that's true.
Exactly. So apart from that, how is your organization using it? How are you using it at work? And how is, sort of a personal day-to-day role for you, but then a larger picture, how's your organization using AI as well? I have to mention that, of course.
Sure. I think in sort of two overarching ways. One is on the production end. They have a lot of really good tools out that can really help fast track the development process. Like, for example, Adobe Podcast is a really good tool. For example, a podcast that we're doing right now. Podcast has become a tool that's increasingly being used in the L&D space, whether it be scenario based to interview SMEs, etc. So, and a tool like Adobe Podcast can help you cut down exponentially on the editing time. It can remove silence. It can remove background noises and also remove just what I just did right now. Ums and ahs.
Yes, all the non-fluencies. Right. It takes it right out.
It takes it right out. And then it also just overall enhances the overall quality of the audio output that you had. Get it closer to studio quality, especially with the advent of recording more so online and virtually. Pre-pandemic, you could go into a studio, you would record with using professional equipment, but now, post-pandemic, for our clients, for example, they've really got accustomed to recording remotely. It's a lot more comfortable for them, and you can use a lot of different tools for that, like the online tools, Zoom, MS Teams. But on our end, once we get the product, putting it through a software like Adobe Podcast can really save a tremendous amount of time for us. And then also, ChatGPT can really help with idea development and brainstorming. You can create a prompt like we talked about a little bit before, where you can go back and forth with the ChatGPT product on any specific topic that you have. You can even go so far as to give it a bit of a personality. Like, for example, if there is, let's talk about philosophy. So you can ask it to pretend to be Socrates.
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
Pretend to be Socrates. Right. And then you can, you can propose, you can make a statement, and you can ask it to pretend to be Socrates and and essentially have a conversation back and forth with ChatGPT.
I was just thinking that isn't that one of the ways that you could really practice kind of some soft skills? Not by pretending you're talking to Socrates, but
Right.
but by giving you the opportunity to practice that way with a tool like a ChatGPT.
Absolutely. Interviewing skills, it can create interview questions for you. It can give you what would be ideal answers to questions. You can ask it to elaborate. You can ask it poke holes in your theory or your idea. Pretend to be a senior executive at XYZ company. Here's my proposal. Now ask me these questions as if you were a senior executive. So that can help you prepare for presentations and just really, help you really solidify what it is that you're trying to do.
That's really neat. I haven't tried anything like that. I find it fascinating how conversational you can be with ChatGPT, right? You give it a prompt, it gives you something back, and then you just kind of say, no, what about adding something like this in, or what about changing it this way? And it's just this iterative process, just like a revision process, but it's with this bot, right?
Right.
That's just giving you this, feeding back to you, generating for
Right.
you your content.
Right. And so, ChatGPT, the GPT stands for generative pre-trained transformers. So I think that's where the pivot point came because, AI machine learning is not new at all. But what is new is for your regular person, your machine learning layman to be able to communicate and in some respects be able to control the interaction, what happens there. So when that happened, that's when this really exploded because then now everyone can use it. As opposed to previously, you had to be like very technical, or you worked in an academic space or in a military space or something like that. Now it brought it to the masses.
Going back to your company, JBS International, and sort of how is your organization using any kind of AI, broadly speaking, to help improve the L&D initiatives there?
In terms of the learning and development space, primarily we've found a lot of usefulness around sort of production end of it, and for in the strictly instructional design piece, the analysis piece, helping us to flesh out topics, questions to be asked to the SMEs, helping us sort of like broad scope of what the possibilities could be around the training and different training modalities has really been useful to us.
How have you seen that work? I mean, how successful has it been in getting your team members on board and really making a difference in the work that you're doing?
So in terms of getting the team members on board, luckily, working with my team in particular, we were sort of the early adapters of the bunch. As early this year in January, we started to loop it into what it is that we do, from again the content creation piece and then the production piece. On the production end, some certain tasks have been cut down. Let's say, for example, took up 4 hours to do, about half a day to do. We've been working with tools that can help us cut that down in some cases even to a few seconds. So it's literally a click of a button. You can imagine it's been an incredible boon for us around that. And we're always learning, always open to, new ideas and new uses of AI. And just, trying to stay in that, almost having a sort of like an innovative kitchen kind of a feel to it.
That's great. I love that. Because this is not a set it and forget it thing. It's not like you're doing AI and you will never continue to iterate it. I mean, you're going to be experimenting every day, every month, looking for new tools, new uses. I mean, you're never really done, right?
Absolutely not. I mean, there's so many tools coming out every day, and they were coming out at light speed earlier this year, and now that the mainstream is caught on, it's even more so now.
Yeah, now they're going to start buying each other up.
Right.
So.
Exactly what's going to happen. Right. Like, like talked about, earlier, like Adobe Photoshop now has embedded AI prompting. You're able to remove backgrounds automatically, when before you had to use an external tool for all that, an AI tool to do that. So they've already started either implementing, and as you mentioned, they'll likely start buying up all of these different AI companies.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that comes to mind though, with the rapid pace that everything is exploding right now, we have to keep in mind some sort of safety around the whole thing, right? I mean, there needs to be some general guardrails that we establish, maybe personally or within our organizations, because they don't really exist yet. What have you guys, what do you have to say about that piece of?
In terms of guardrail, one universal rule should be to never, never, never include your personally identifiable information. Things like your address, where you work, any medical information inside any of these tools. Keep it as high level and generic as you possibly can. For example, if you are creating a prompt that's specific to your company, your name of your company is Momentum Interactive. You can do something as simple as do a search and replace, and for Momentum Interactive, let's say, for example, to ABC company or something like that, just to clean it and make it as generic as possible. Again, it's ChatGPT, so it's generative pre-trained transformers, so it's always learning, right? So you want to make sure that it doesn't learn from your proprietary business, because in theory, someone in another space could be working up a prompt and it could inadvertently glean from the information that you've now inputted. That's something that you want to be definitely careful about. And then always implementing a human checkpoint is another thing. You never want to go into these tools and, just take it for face value. Like, for example, some of these tools like a Midjourney and things like that. Anyone who's been working with graphics know that AI has problems with hands. They don't do hands well, which is a weird thing. Yeah, it's really. So I've seen folks use AI images, and the person had 2 pairs of hands. So they have 4 hands, sort of odd things, or like more fingers than they should. Yeah, it's really interesting, and it's something that if you're not looking careful, like you may miss. And if you've been working with the tools, and it's not just Midjourney, it's about all of them have an issue with hands. So that's something that's small, but it can create an issue if you were to deliver this to a client.
That's interesting.
And
yeah.
Just being mindful of trusting the information, because some of these programs can do what we call hallucinations,
Mm-hmm.
which essentially means it can make up content and information, things that have never happened.
Well, it's just a good reminder for people to, use all these tools with enthusiasm, but with caution, that it's not meant to replace everything we do, but there are some definite good use cases, like you were saying, Michelle, that, things that save time, that give us the space and time in the day that we need to be more creative or more thoughtful or just more efficient. So I guess just be careful, right?
Absolutely. Be very cautious. I've even myself, I've asked it for, evidence-based results and to provide the links, and the links, sometimes they don't lead anywhere or they're not accurate. So you always need someone to check it out. And, in addition to the hallucinations, as a part of your guardrails and your safety, is also be mindful of bias. Bias is in everything, because anything that a human touch has some level of bias. So that's also something to be mindful when you are prompting, and then when you also get the results from your prompt, to kind of keep that in mind and have some checks and balances. Most, like we mentioned before, most of the information which is gathered from the internet, whether or not it was actually vetted, is another, it remains to be seen. An example in the EU, one of the things that they're trying to do is require these AI firms to list where the training and data that they have actually came from.
Yeah, that's something I've wondered about a lot because, how do you cite your source? And do you have to? Is the assumption now with AI that,
Right.
everything is sort of fair game, like open sourced, and we don't need to come up with a list of citations every time we develop something? I mean, yeah, where do you see that going?
I think the lean is towards actually citing, where you got it from, whether it be a ChatGPT kind of a thing, as opposed to, because otherwise you didn't really, you didn't technically create the content. But my hope is that the information that you do get from these types of tools, that you're vetting it and you're updating it. Like what you get from the tool is level 1. Right. So it's not level 3.
Right.
So what you're releasing to the public, to your client, especially to your client, should be level 3. It's been vetted, it's gone through an editor, et cetera, et cetera. So that really shouldn't be an issue, hopefully.
Do you have sort of an open conversation about it with your clients? As I know a lot of listeners are in the same field where they're working with clients and maybe don't know how to approach saying, hey, I want to use AI to enhance my work, but comfortable with that? Like, how do you navigate that conversation?
Well, in our case, we've had a couple clients that have released statements and or sort of interim policies around AI. What we've seen so far is essentially, yes, you can use them. We understand that it could potentially be a tool for innovation, and we encourage exploration and experimentation, but it shouldn't be, the way that you are developing, content on our behalf. Like we talked about before, the vetting and the human checkpoint should always be there. And I think that's sort of the general perspective that a lot of companies that should be taking. There should be the time of exploration and experimentation to figure out, what do you need? What kind of tools that work for you? What process works for you? What kind of security measures work for you? This is the time for that, to start working on that and developing that.
Michelle, I know you and your team are still navigating all this, of course, but you're perhaps many months ahead of some others in the industry. For people who are just getting started using AI or trying to figure out how they might use it in the L&D industry, what would you tell them about how they would get started and just some things to look out for to make sure they were kind of navigating this journey properly?
So first off, for anyone, because there are people who are sort of fearful, right, and scared, and you watch these movies where AI sort of takes over the world, and all these kind of things happen. So the first thing is to know that everyone in some way is already using AI. You just are. Whether it be when you're texting, the predictive text that comes up, that's AI. When you're watching Netflix and it suggests movies that are relative to movies that you've watched previously, that's AI. In the L&D world, for programs like Storyline and Captivate, they have a text-to-speech function. That's AI. So you're already using it. So I would say that, again, we're very early on in these stages. Everybody's still learning, right? No one, unless you've been in machine learning, you're a machine learning professional, no one has their 10,000 hours yet. Everybody's still learning here at the same time. So this is the time to experiment and figure out what works for you, what works for your team, and then start to implement it. In terms of overall implementation, you can have sort of level 1, level 2. Level 1 may be that your company just isn't using it yet. Level 2 could be this sort of experimental phase that you're working through. Level 3, you figured it out. You have a pretty good grasp on the types of tools that you want to use. You have some general policies around using AI. And then level 4, it becomes part of the DNA of your company, where it's absolutely seamless. And it's just something that is expected to be able to use in all verticals, right, in all departments, in all spaces as a part of your development process.
That was a lovely answer. And I love that you provide a framework, right? You don't have to jump in with both feet if you don't want to. Just dip your toe in and just, start with level one and let yourself get comfortable, use the tool, and then, grow with this new idea in a way that suits you.
So to help you get started, I would suggest go to ChatGPT, OpenAI, open up a free account. It's 100% free, right? So in your first chat that you're going to open, you can write a very simple prompt. So I'm going to lay it out for you. I'm a senior instructional designer, and I want to create a course on, you can insert topic here, whatever the topic is. I'm going to choose the best practices for safety in an in-home daycare. Give me 5 potential topics for the course. You press send. It's going to come right up in just a few seconds, not even a second. It'll come up. And then after that, the second prompt could be something like, and this is using the topic that you choose. You're going to take the best one. Give me an outline for 3 modules on health and hygiene protocols. And it's going to come right up, 2 seconds. It's going to write it all out for you, all in that same chat. I think you'll be blown away by how quickly it is and how it can give you a framework, level 1, depending on the generality of the topic. Like health and hygiene is pretty generic. It can even get you to level 2.
It gets you thinking, if
Right.
nothing else, it's not going to do your work for you necessarily across the board,
Absolutely
but
not.
it'll get your juices flowing, and it'll get you thinking about maybe some things you hadn't thought of before.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a partner. It's not going to take your job, but it may if you don't learn how to use it. You're going to have to partner with these tools. It's your assistant. It's not your boss.
I'm struck by that last sort of foreboding comment. It may if you don't know how to use it. So you just you segued perfectly into my next question, which was, what do you think is the future here? What do you think is the future of AI and learning?
I think eventually it will become sort of a clandestine partner and powerful tool. I think we talked about a little bit earlier in our everyday softwares that we use, Storyline, Captivate, or whatever else comes 5, 10, 20 years down the road. It'll be wrapped into the DNA of those tools, almost to the point where we won't even know that we're using it. It won't even be highlighted as an AI tool. Like everyone has AI tool now wrapped around there because it's sort of the hot thing right now. But it's going to be included in the DNA of all the software tools, and then also in all the development processes, because by that time, people will have included it as a part of their general business practices. It won't be this sort of new shiny thing anymore, something internet new and shiny, right? In the early 90s, mid 90s.
Or social media, which was also new and shiny. Yeah.
Right. And now it's just something that we just do every day. It's incorporated to our everyday life. I think that's the future of AI tools and L&D.
Well, there's so much more for all of us to learn. We'll have to use AI to continue to learn about AI. So, any other final points you want to share, Michelle?
I do want to encourage people to, start to dip your proverbial toe into the water of AI. If you haven't, the water's warm. This is the time to experiment and figure out what's going to work for you. And it's an extremely powerful tool. And once you learn to harness it, the possibility is endless.
Great advice. Thank you very much, Michelle.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Beth, Michelle's AI journey is really inspirational. What are some of the key messages that she shared that you want to take away?
Well, I think one of the things I will definitely take away is that this is the future. This is not going away. This is part of our process and should be part of our process to become more efficient. So I think I'm going to dive right in and see how I can use AI as a resource for my ideas and my future work.
Well, I think like she said, the water's warm. Might as well put your toe in and give it a test, right?
Absolutely.
Well, thanks, Beth. And many thanks to our guest, Michelle Echevarria, for sharing her thoughts on AI in the L&D industry. And don't forget that you can use AI to ask for Powered by Learning wherever you listen to your podcasts.